Now, let me turn to the other gentleman. What I hear Mr. McCauley, Mr. Ring, and Mr. Gannon saying is that some of America's banks have been discriminating, debanking customers because of their religious beliefs, because they support the Second Amendment, or because they hate fossil fuels.
Hey folks, welcome back to the channel. Today we're diving into a massive story straight from Capitol Hill. Senator John Kennedy just put some of America's biggest banks on blast, accusing them of shutting down accounts based on politics and personal beliefs. Is this corporate America playing favorites, or are regulators pulling the strings behind the scenes? Stick with me because we're breaking it all down. And before we jump in, if you love content that exposes the truth and holds the powerful accountable, make sure to hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications. All right, let's get into it. Senator Kennedy kicked things off with a major question. What happened to all the money in the banking system? For the past few years, Washington has been focused on raising taxes, but now the conversation has shifted. People want to know where all that money went and why some customers are getting shut out by their own banks. That brings us to the real controversy. Are banks discriminating against customers for their beliefs? During the hearing, witnesses claimed that major banks are shutting down accounts based on religious views, support for the Second Amendment, or even pro-fossil fuel stances. And we're not talking about small banks here. The names that came up, Bank of America, Chase Bank, Citibank, and KeyBank. Kennedy didn't hold back. He called for these CEOs to be dragged into Congress and questioned about their actions. What do you guys think? Should these banks be held accountable? Let me know in the comments below. So, why is this happening? That's the million-dollar question. Some experts in the hearing said that bank executives are pushing their own political agendas. Others believe it's actually the federal regulators forcing banks to take these actions. One example, crypto. Banks wanted to work with cryptocurrency, but they were apparently scared away by the regulatory system. So is this about politics, or are these banks just afraid of losing favor with Washington? Kennedy also raised another big concern. This kind of banking discrimination could hurt shareholders. If a bank is picking and choosing customers based on politics instead of business, that's a huge risk for investors. And for everyday Americans, this could set a dangerous precedent. What if banks start banning customers just because they don't agree with their views? If you think this is a massive problem, drop A in the comments to let me know. So, what's next? Kennedy wants bank CEOs in front of Congress answering these tough questions. But will anything actually change? That's what we're waiting to find out. One thing's for sure, this story is far from over, and I'll be following it every step of the way. If you don't want to miss updates on this and other major stories, make sure you're subscribed. Hit that subscribe button right now and turn on notifications so you never miss a video. And if you found this breakdown helpful, smash that like button to help more people see it. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one. Stay informed, stay empowered.
Senator Warner is a reasonable man. Everybody on this committee knows that. And he's a good man. And I understand he's interested in process, and I'm not saying that process isn't important. And it seems to me that that's the main issue with respect to all of this. And I look forward to talking further with my friend, Mr. Warner, about that. I mean, for 4 years under President Biden, as was his right, the topic of discussion in Washington was who needs to pay more in taxes? Who needs to pay more in taxes? That's no longer the main question. The main question is now, as it should be in my judgment, what the hell happened to all the money? And we're going to find out. Now, I need to get back to the subject. With the exception of Mr. Klein, whose testimony I enjoyed, I understand his position. He wants to let the CFPB run America's banks. And I appreciate that perspective, but Mr. Klein, it's not going to happen in your natural lifetime or mine. Now, let me turn to the other gentleman. What I hear Mr. McCauley, Mr. Ring, and Mr. Gannon saying is that some of America's banks have been discriminating, debanking customers because of their religious beliefs, because they support the Second Amendment, or because they hate fossil fuels. I don't want to go with all three of you. I'll run out of time. Mr. Ring, is that what you're saying?
Yes, sir.
Which banks?
Well, I think it's been publicly reported that Bank of America has certainly picked and choose winners.
Who else?
I think Chase Bank has.
Who else?
I think Citibank has.
Who else?
I think KeyBank has.
Who else?
I'm going to probably run out of names pretty soon, but I think the mega banks are. Old Glory Bank is not, of course. We love the Second Amendment and fossil fuels.
We need to get those banks in here, Mr. Chairman. We need to get all those CEOs in here.
I would agree.
Now, why? I appreciate your candor. Why do you think, are banks doing this because they're scared of the regulators? Or are they doing this because the people running the banks are prosecuting their political beliefs? I mean, when a bank holds a seminar, taking up valuable employee time to discuss whether a man can breastfeed, are they doing that because regulators are leaning on them? Or are they doing that because the CEO really thinks that's subject to debate?
I think it's definitely the latter, and I think it's also middle management.
What do you mean the latter?
It is not the regulators. I do not believe the regulators pushed the big banks to debank conservative causes.
Don't?
I do not. I think it was their internal choice by these big banks.
Why?
Well, why? The same reason why big tech pick and choose winners. I think big banks pick and choose winners that they care about, and that's why we need a market solution, because you can't regulate that type of behavior without having unintended consequences. And now every time you get a customer application, you've got to fill out 5 forms as to why you did or did not pick that customer.
So you think that that's the management of these banks that are just imposing their own politics on customers and ultimately to the detriment of shareholders? Is that your testimony?
Yes, sir.
Either you two gentlemen in my last 10 seconds disagree with that?
I strongly disagree, Senator. Yes, I've spent a lot of time with a number of banks.
Who do you think it is?
I believe it's the regulators.
How about you, sir?
It's definitely regulators. All the big banks wanted to work with crypto and were scared away from it by the regulatory apparatus.
All right, I'm out of time. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.